Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast this month with our second time returning guest, Mr. Mark Z, who's been gracious enough to join us all the way from sunny, frigid Puerto Rico. And little inside joke there. And we're honored to have him back on to have the discussion everyone here wants to have: currencies, bonds, cryptos, and the like. So if you're new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share so that others can gain in the knowledge you're afforded. He's also has the most succinct bio I've ever seen. Father, husband, podcaster, business person, and philanthropist and Christian. And he's going to be giving us his insights on the reset. How are you doing today, good sir?
Zero complaints. Life is good, and it's warm again after coming back from the States back down to sunny Puerto Rico.
Yes, you're really roughing it.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's going to be like 80 today and sunny.
Don't know how you'll
Well,
manage.
it's already 80 and sunny.
Don't know how you're going to manage that, brother.
It's going to be
Well,
tough.
exactly. Well, we got a lot to go through. So if you're okay with it, I'm just going to run through what I have and then I'll have your feedback on it. We'll just go back and forth. Does that sound cool?
Sounds fantastic.
All right. So let's get started here on some of the screenshots. None of it's a surprise to you or the audience, but when I woke up this morning here in frigid LA, haha, it was like being shot out of a cannon with news. And the gold's at an all-time high. This was this early this morning. Now I think it's, let me take a look in real time. Let's see what we got. 34, 36, 80. It was 34, 30, 34, 44, 30, something like that. So it's already at all-time highs. Silver was up 33 and 16, something like that this morning. What I found particularly interesting was that the dollar index is now below 100. It was 98 last night on the London side, as you probably know. And one of our economists on our team, B, really feels adamant that that's important. We saw Brent crude, I think last week, go below 59. And then this news came up that has been the buzz of the entire world. As you all know, the fake clone Pope. They finally, you can see there, that's clearly two different people. I mean, it couldn't be more obvious. They let him have one more Resurrection Sunday, which, by the way, happy post-Resurrection Sunday to you and the audience. And then they optically drummed him out this morning. So really interesting on that front. Then I'll swing you over to the other side that I think everybody's equally interested in. And obviously, Mark, you're going to give us your feedback on all of it. I'm just trying to do this for time's sake. This came up this morning. I don't know if you saw it in Shafak News. Iraq PM launches 1.67 billion infrastructure blitz. So they're really trying to push, obviously, the massive infrastructure of the Port of Fa. There's some other information here, which we'll go through. Sudani and Dakar, the infrastructure push once again. As you know, the late Benny Wilson talked about a water shortage going on in Iraq, especially when you're dealing with a desert area, which in California, I'm not unfamiliar with that, depending where you are. He was saying when that happens, that is definitely a sign, if you will, of the incoming plane landing for said reset. So we're starting to see that. Interestingly enough, staying with Iraq, Swisher 1776 on X put this out. You probably already know this. The SDRs are showing here 1776. There's a calm. I mean, emancipation, freedom, devalue to revalue sure seems that way to us. Sudani, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, that's also just a note as you go back with the comments from your group on the devaluation. They're setting this up for a reset, even the US dollar. But go ahead.
No, thank you for adding that. That's exactly right. So again, I don't know how much of this you have or haven't seen because I know information flies your way all the time. Sudani, the Arab Summit, Baghdad will be very important to the Arab world. Well, they're meeting right now in a delegation. They started this weekend going all the way to the end of today. Just looking at my calendar. But he stressed that they're having a meeting here next month, which will be very important for the Arab world. Now, I could, speculate on that, but it sure seems like he's giving comms there that they're preparing to come in for a landing with Iraq insofar as what they're going to do with the public, as we just saw with the devalues you rightly pointed out. Here's Ariel making a post about Doge, ready for your dividend check. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller suggests that ordinary Americans deserve reparations for the damage caused by mass migration. You have to have a story or a narrative to tell the public, obviously. So that looks to be, I think, May 1st is what we're hearing for that. Here's an interesting, very important point for Iraq. Iraq isn't just oil rich, obviously. it's sitting on a new wave of global wealth. It ranks 9th in the world in richest countries with natural resources, mineral wealth, precious metals, diamonds. We all know the rest. Gold, estimated over 16 trillion. And I think that's probably being rather modest, as you would agree. Going over here, this is a short video I just want to play for you. I'm sure you're familiar with Jim Rickards, and this has to do with the Sovereign Wealth Fund, I think is what he's referring to. So let me just cue up the sound here real quick, and we'll play that and go from there.
In 1873, Congress quietly established something I call a secret trust for the American people. And for more than a century, this fund has quietly grown, untouched, into a $150 trillion fortune. That's enough to pay off our entire national debt 4 times over. If you divided it by the number of households in the US, it would be enough to turn every American family into a millionaire. Now, this trust should have enriched generations of Americans. That was its intended purpose. Instead, for more than a century, it's remained sealed off from the public. But that's all about to change, thanks to President Trump. You see, for the first time in more than 40 years, the president has the authority to release this secret trust. It's all thanks to a 2024 Supreme Court ruling. That ruling had paved the way for President Trump to unleash this $150 trillion wealth reserve, and he has clearly stated his intentions to do so. Look, if you understand what's coming next, and you take the proper steps today, you could watch your net worth soar in the coming years.
So there's that. Let me go to the next one. I think we know, obviously, that's a Doge Nasara Jasara Sovereign Wealth Fund. No real surprise. If you look at the debt clock, you see it mark matriculating up more and more and more. And the return coming back to Americans is increasing, I think, to 496,000. I won't be surprised when it's all done if it's probably closer to 1.5 million per person. Here is an article from, Zero Hedge. Global safe haven slowly breaking, central banks turning to gold. Well, we know that. And China is slowly revealing how much gold they've been amassing. And we know that's obviously for the bond market. So, gold is basically telling its own story. No big surprise to you, but also the implications as that has for the BRICS nations, which all of our currencies are housed in, obviously. When we talk about the reciprocal trade tariffs, Trump is making, you'll note, Mark, that he came to terms right away with Vietnam, came right to the table. And so that's going to be interesting. I have some questions for you on that, but I'm just going to roll through this for time's sake. This is interesting, Mark. Gold Telegraph, breaking news. France is worrying that the president of the US, meaning Trump, would put the credibility of the dollar on the line if he fired Powell. Well, I think we're talking about the Federal Reserve deep state dollar, which is for them, not for us. This is fascinating, Mark. I got this over the weekend from our team member, John G. You've probably already seen this. A gold ATM in Shanghai, China. It melts the gold and transfers the amount corresponding to its weight in your choice of bank account. So let's cue that up so the audience can see it. Just give me one moment. I want to make sure. Okay, that's good. Let's play that. 的东西基本上是对下一步了。对，下一步。And just like that, it melts your gold and converts it to whatever digital account or bank account or crypto where you want it to go. So that's pretty telling on the backs of China's amassing of gold. We see here in Iraq, the water issue, once again, water supply is going to become hugely important for them for survivability, economic infrastructure, and trade and commerce, obviously with the port of Fa. And then we go over to Zimbabwe. Nelson Chamisa, you see him bringing more and more comms, overcoming hate through the cross. Christ overcame hate. The world hates you, then you know that he hated me before he hated you. If you are not of the world will love its own. Yet because you're not of the world, but I chose you out of this world, therefore the world hates you. But this happened in a world might be fulfilled, which is written in their law. They hated me without cause, citing, of course, John 15:18-19. He's just reminding you that he's there. And this is a very important follow-up Mark to this is, I hope I'm saying this right, said Gaza declares a national shutdown of April 22nd, tomorrow, and the 23rd. Let the games continue. They're putting pressure on Mingawa by getting the people to protest to get him out, which is going to hasten the return of Nelson Chamisa. We're hoping sometime by May. What a coincidence when all these things are coming down. So now that I've washed you with a deluge of information, I ask you, what are your impressions of all this?
Yeah, I'm like, where do I start? because there's so much to cross. I mean, you left out some of the big ones. Klaus Schwab steps down. Pope passes away after a brief, 17-minute, not even 17-minute visit. His motorcade was only there, JD Vance's, for 17 minutes or so.
Yep.
And you were talking about some of the wealth in Iraq. Very few people are touching on fertilizer. They're touching on the water. They're touching on all that. They are putting fertilizer plants. They used to be the breadbasket of the Middle East, the fertilizer producer of the Middle East, and they are going back online with that one. And I've not seen many gurus, intel, economists, or whatever really talking about that one. But that is a huge level of stability for the Iraqi economy. And I definitely wanted to back up to that Arab summit. I had a finance and ministry contact tell me some time ago when they were first talking about it, that one of the requirements for them to host it was that they had a new value for their currency before the Arab summit. And now, is that still holding true? I don't know, but we got an Arab summit next month. I've got a number of bond contracts saying, hey, we did contacts telling me they need 1 to 2 more weeks and they will be done on the bond side, which means currency should quickly follow. A lot of the financial ones with Iraq, we have been covering, from diversification of their economy to banking. I love the gold ones. Right now I'm having more fun, and the article that you shared from Zero Hedge, really good one. If you can put the link for people to read it, because it really gets into the mechanics and some of what Trump is doing right now with the devalue of the dollar. He is preparing us for a reset. He is putting everything into place. Powell won't play along, or doesn't appear to be playing along. Could be comms, could be, pantomime, whatever you guys want to call it. Yeah. But Trump is laying that groundwork to devalue the Fed's dollar and revalue gold. Then when he pegs a new currency, I mean, this is just brilliant. We saw Judy Shelton just talking about wide out in the open over the weekend, on Easter weekend, talking about the reset to gold and how that would look. I love it. I mean, I don't know what else people need short of just, stamp, it's done. We all want that, but you can watch it happening right now.
Yeah. Well, I had to leave out something, Mark, so you can have something to talk about. So I threw a lot at you. And while we're on the subject, Mark, also, yes, I will leave that link for the gold in the description. Yeah, it's a good point. I put it in our Telegram a while ago, but the articles are so fast and furious, people might have sort of forgotten about it because of all the influx of info. But also Zimbabwe last week, per Kim Clement's prophetic vision, that they were going to find white stuff in the ground, which is going to make them filthy rich. We already know that Zimbabwe is, or specifically South Africa, is third in the world in gold reserves. They just have been finding discoveries in Zimbabwe, the Congo, I believe Mali, and one other country in the continent of South Africa has found a ton of lithium, which is considered white gold. That's going to have a huge positive repercussion or impact for the nation of Zimbabwe and all of us investing in said bonds and ZIG dollars, et cetera.
It's one of those where we just had 2 big finds in China for gold too, possibly 1 million tons. I mean, just like crazy numbers, 300 million. I mean, just crazy gold finds suddenly in the U.S. We suddenly discovered 17 million tons worth of copper reserves. I believe that was Utah. That story we just shared this morning. Of course, we just had the recent lithium find in the U.S. too. It's like every time I turn around right now, there's these huge commodity discoveries all around the world. At the same time, we are ending a fiat cycle. And throughout history, every time we end a fiat cycle, we hit a super cycle of commodities, and commodities become worth more. So countries with physical commodities, gold, metals, silvers, are suddenly worth more. I don't know how they can set the stage any better than they're setting the stage. I'm just wondering who all's paying attention to this thing.
Well, I know our audiences are, and I think it's, to your point, a wake-up operation for the masses. You're right. And it's funny, it's good that you brought up gold too, Mark, because our mutual friend, Andy Sheckman, Miles Franklin, shout out to him. We both talk to him regularly, and I had a discussion with him last week about gold and the gold revaluation and the implications that's going to have on the reset. And he absolutely agrees. And what a coincidence that China is now massively secretly funding all this gold because they're going to have to pay back on the trillions that they owe us. President Trump talked about in nefarious real estate, in the Chinese bonds, in CMKX, and many other things. They're going to have to come to the table. So they bought it up on the cheap so that they can get the leverage of the revaluation to then cover their short positions.
That's exactly what they've been doing. Even when we hear, like in the exchange process, everybody calls it oil for or whatever. The Chinese families and banking families have been buying some of the currencies that we all are tracking and hopeful for. They've been buying them as well in hopes that they can take advantage of it.
Yes, it's a good point. And also, since you brought that up, that also jogged my memory of another sub point. Everybody talks about how much I had a while ago, Jim Willie on our show, and he was talking about Trump has a skid pallet of dinar, right? But what maybe many people may not know is he probably has even more of that of dong. And Vietnam was the first country, one of the first to come to the table last week in the reciprocal trade agreements in this 90-day window, which I think you and I both agree it's not going to take anywhere near 90 days to get that done because they're already coming to the table. Probably has already been done, and they're just, again, as you said, rolling it out for the public optics. But he's got a ton of dong. We know that that's invaluable. We had heard, I can't confirm it, so I don't like to talk a lot about this stuff unless I absolutely have 100%. But in this case, it was from one of our team members. So I wanted to run it by you and see what you've heard. There was discussion that Vietnam secretly has already revalued and that there was some debate about whether they might go ahead of the dinar. What are your thoughts on that?
From my contacts in both Vietnam and Iraq, zero chance of them going separate. I have been told that in some, I don't even know where you would put it at the platform level, that there are some very increased values on the dong being traded and in some of the pairings with other foreign currencies. So for me, do I think they have quietly gone ahead? I think they've done it kind of piecemeal. Like Iraq has been doing it. You'll see different values for contractors, different values for pairings. I think they're priming the pump, testing the system.
Yeah, it would seem that way. It seemed they're getting it in position, as you said, for landing. Now, we'll get crucified if we don't talk about this. So let's cover for the satiation of the audience. Thai baht, Venezuelan bolivar. Obviously we have a crystal ball, but you've been doing this a long time. In your estimation, how soon after dinar and dong go do you think those currencies might go?
Thai faster. Venezuela, I get in so much trouble, but right now I don't see how it can go yet. Yeah. I'm not going to rule out miracles that we've been working with government there or that they're far more prepared. I do know from some contacts on the ground, they have been busy de-dollarizing. Prices in stores are now in Venezuelan bolivar again instead of in US dollars. They went on a flurry of activity a month or so getting US dollar off and getting older bolivar off the street where they had been using it in some of the older series of bills that aren't as worth as much, that they went on like an all-out blitz over the last month or two to clean up the monetary supply on the streets. Now we see in pricing, I know that they have suddenly found millions of dollars, probably more like billions of dollars, to start upfitting a lot of their manufacturing and updating. They've had a lot of mothballed plants from like canneries for, soup and sardines or whatever. Mm-hmm. That they are suddenly breathing life into. So I'm not going to rule out that they couldn't go at the same time, but I've always expected it would probably be more like, well, I shouldn't say always, of late, I've expected it would be sometime, maybe 6 months after or so, but that is just a gut looking at what's going on. That is not an insider comment. That's not some magical intel source. So I'm curious if you're hearing anything on the timing on Venezuelan bolivar.
Yeah, I haven't really heard anything on the timing. I can only just give you my personal opinion. I think they have to get rid of Maduro and clean up the corruption because this is not only a leveling of a playing field of the trade tariffs as the narrative, right? But it's also we just talked about it with Chamisa and Ngawa and Zimbabwe. You're seeing that pattern proliferate throughout the world, starting with the US and going all the way, to other countries. I think they have to get rid of Maduro. And then that sort of, I could see it being later this year or probably early next year, honestly. And that's good in the sense that for those of us who own multiple different currencies, it gives you a chance to kind of level up, right? So you can cash out what you have and then, purchase up or stock up if you have some of it add to the cash of your position, however you want to look at it. So I just think the delays in time give the people a chance to get in more, because God knows that not everybody knows about the dinar or the dong or the zim. So he's going to give his people throughout the world enough time to get into, one or multiples of the tranches, depending on what he wants them to have. So yeah, I think we'd be looking at late this year or next year would be a guess. And I also think North and South Korea are going to merge and make one currency, the yuan. I think that's one to look at as well.
Now, that one wouldn't surprise me at all on that front. Seeing them merge, that definitely wouldn't surprise me. When we look at like that trailing, and a lot of people get upset, they're like, "Oh my God, we'd be double dipping." I don't think the world's looking at it. I don't think the people pulling the strings were looking at as double dipping. If they didn't want you to double dip, they didn't want you to be able to exchange one and then be able to afford another one that's going, 6 months, a year, whatever after. If they didn't want that, they would go all at one time.
Exactly.
And it does look like we're not going all at one time. We're going to get a bunch of them, most of the ones that we're all looking at, and then a few more stragglers as they are ready. I think it creates an opportunity. I think we need to stop going, well, that's not fair. The world's not fair until Christ returns. So
Agreed.
Until then, get used to not being fair and take advantage of it to do good. Because, if all you've got is a smaller amount of this currency and it changes value, it creates a tremendous opportunity for those that couldn't take advantage in the first round.
Well, not only that, Mark, but to your point, the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous. So I think everyone in our groups, for the most part, I would say 95+% of whatever, the majority, have every intentionality of helping, whether it's, a singular family member or a group family member, or their communities or missionary outreach or feeding the homeless, whatever it is, kingdom/humanitarian projects, whatever you want to call it. Everybody's got the design. So it's going to be a very altruistic helping hand kind of thing. Like you see those movies where there's a line of people and they're handing, boxes or goods off one at a time. And many hands make light work, as the Bible says, right? So I think it's going to be that kind of situation. And by not having them all go at once, which I never thought they would, I always thought it would be in sections. It's like a palate cleanser, because there's so much abundance coming in so many different ways between the currencies, the bonds, Nasara Jasara, gold, land. There's another subject I want to ask you about. It's sort of unrelated, but it's not, because everything kind of, correlates. So one of the things we're watching for is, real estate's going to have a tremendous value buying land, right? Because, there's going to be, natural gas, oil on some of the lands, farming plots, people are going to be doing a lot of homesteading in this movie, getting back to the future, back to basics, land ownership and growing their own food and supporting the local farmers and all those great things that need to come back again. 17 years ago, we saw the real estate crash, right? That was fraudulent to begin with. And I think we're going to see it again starting in the summer. How much of an impact do you think that will have on the residential real estate market this year? And is that kind of how you see it as well?
I do agree. And part of resetting the dollar is, and a lot of people don't want to hear it, is deflation, is adjusting those values to where they need to be. We have unrealistic expectations of what our property values are because we were living in a fiat world where they created more value. They had everything to gain by increasing the tax value, loaning you more, because that allowed them to hypothecate. If they say your home's worth $300,000 instead of $100,000, then you can borrow more money. When you borrow more money, they can fractionalize, make more money out of thin air so that they can loan more money. It was one heck of a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
So people are going to have to reassess, okay, what's it worth? And change their thought process, because if $1,000 now buys $10,000 worth of goods, but your house is only worth a third, you're still coming out ahead. There's going to be a lot of people that are just going to panic because their entire world is caught up. Their only value, their only worth, they think, is in their real estate, their primary residency. We're going to have a tough time explaining how to think of things and how to look at things, because the entire world's changing.
Perfectly stated, Mark. And also, it's a mindset. I always talk to my audience about changing your mindset, taking action, and then so on where you prosper, right? So it's a three-pronged approach. And yeah, you're right, because people are thinking, well, I've got to buy this house so I can flip another house so I can make profit off that. It's this borrow from Peter to pay Paul mentality, which never had to be that fear and scarcity lack mindset, going to an abundance mindset as an example of an attitudinal mindset shift. So the other flip side of it is that two things. One, you won't have to worry about, oh, I've got to make this on my house so I can afford the next one. The next one you're going to get is going to be a lot cheaper. So it's actually going to level itself out. So you don't have to be concerned with that. And the other aspect that I always get is Trump isn't just removing income tax, right? He's also removing excise tax, property tax, because there is no law in the books that says you actually have to register your property with city municipality. Just as there's no law in the books that says individuals have to pay taxes, but the public doesn't know that yet. That's slowly going to be revealed. He's also removing capital gains. How does that affect us on the foreign currencies and on the cryptos, right? And I mean, most people here have probably owned currencies for more than 2.5 years anyway, so it's a non sequitur, but it's a peace of mind thing. So I totally agree with you. Another mop-up question I want to ask you about, you were talking about the Venezuela and the Boulevard. There's been a question that I've kind of been asked occasionally, and I wanted to bring you in on it because you've been, again, doing it a while. You were talking about the cleanup on the streets of the different denominations. Is there, in fact, a denomination within the Boulevard that's more valuable than another, or are they all kind of equally valuable?
For me, you just got to do how many zeros did they add or remove. My contacts there keep telling me that it's not that one's more valuable than the other. Some of them just represent more Boulevard than others based on the year it was printed. Did they cut zeros off? Did they add zeros, etc.? That you got to go through them. I think the digitalis is the generally accepted, but that's one of the latest versions. So of course, because it represents more currency, they just call it the different series rather than add more zeros so that they got to print a bill that's 3 feet wide. They just cut them and change the series. So I've been told over and over that's how we have to look at it. We just have to do the math.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I also, the Fuentes is also really good. I think of it in similar terms of like the Zim bonds, like whether you've got a 100 trillion or a billion or a 1 trillion, they're all going to be valuable. It's just, to varying degrees, and you don't need to like stockpile one or the other. They're all going to be accepted. So it's all going to kind of go in the pot. It's kind of how I think of it.
I look at it like, if I've got $100 bills, I got $100, it's worth $100. If I've got 250s, they're worth $100. So you look at those different series. What do they add up to?
Yeah. No, that's a good way to look at it. It's in a simplified way. I like that. And also, yes, I've heard the aggro checks are, I always get that question, yes, they're going to be also very valuable because you see articles with Chamisa talking about a restoration of the land and agriculture. So he's kind of giving you, comms right there. Mark, at this point, I've kind of exhausted my own information, so I turn over to you. Is there anything breaking or important that you want to highlight to the people?
I really want, as a Christian, I wanted your take on the passing of the Pope for the 3rd time, 4th time, 5th time. I couldn't tell you how many times we've heard the story that this Pope has passed. But your take is this. I mean, we saw Klaus Schwab step down from the World Economic Forum. No warning, no whatever. I know he talked about it roughly a year ago that at some point he would be stepping down and just be a council member. He would no longer be president or chairman or whatever they want to call it. But this one, he's like completely stepping away.
Yeah.
And we got that on the same day we have the Pope passing. Am I just hopeful? Am I reading too much into it?
No, I mean, I think it's a dawning of a new era. I mean, I have to answer that question, Mark, in a two-stage process. From a Christian standpoint, as you said, or even just being a decent person at the very least, we're not supposed to wish, the Bible says in Proverbs, do not delight in the misery of or suffering of others. And you certainly don't wish death on anyone. At the same time, we know this is not the real Pope, right? I just showed you a picture of that earlier. So I think the real one was taken out a long time ago, but the public as a whole doesn't know that. I was just passing by my walk this morning to the church, and they've got, the white ribbons up and the white flowers and, honoring the morning, whatever. So I think what you're seeing is it's much like the economic system. It's a paralleling, right? It's a symbology where you're seeing a death of the old and a birth to the new. It's a a passing of the torch, you could say.
Yeah, that's one end is somebody else's beginning, and that's probably the best way to look at what's going on with that one. I just look at this particular pope, and he was peddling to me. It appeared more like a universal religion of feel good. Oh, just go be a good person, positive vibes, and that just does not jive with my understanding of the Bible. The Bible is pretty specific. I'm the way, the light, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but through me. And I find feel good religion to be so dangerous because it can get people into thinking, oh, yeah, no, I'm a good person. I'm going to heaven. And then they never really dedicate themselves or give themselves to Christ. I'm not saying any of us are perfect. I'm perfect. You're perfect, or any of those. But, we strive. That's what we're supposed to do, is strive. God knows we're not perfect. He made us. But I just find that universal religion that he was espousing would, horribly against from abortion. I mean, we can pick a few in here that just did not fit with Catholic Church or Christianity in my book. And I just find that so dangerous that it could detract somebody from where they really need to have their eyes. That's part of why I wanted your thoughts on this particular pope, because I found him very, very dangerous to Christianity. Great for feel good, go hug a tree, everybody's going to heaven, everybody gets a trophy. But
yeah,
I think it's dangerous.
Well, I thought that was kind of understood, so that's why I didn't really say much more about it. I mean, clearly he was into pedophilia and trafficking and one world religion coexisting, as you said, completely antithetical to Christ's teachings biblically. There's, I put out an article in Telegram because look, we're supposed to be seeking truth, right? John 8:32, we shall know the truth, and the truth shall set us free. So it's about truth, and God honors the misinformation we've been taught as children, and as we grow in this movement, we learn more, we know better, we do better, in theory. And so he doesn't, as you said, doesn't expect us to be perfect, but we need to be in pursuit of the truth, right? And then, and to that end, I put up an article last night, I don't know if you saw in the Telegram, where there's discussions about Jesus even, dying on a Thursday night, not a Friday. If you look at the actual sequence of events, in the Jewish calendar. We obviously know about the Easter Bunny and, the pagan traditions and all that. That's more understood. But if you start to get to the nuances of it, you start to learn that the things you thought you knew really aren't so. And I don't think God faults us for that. It's just that, again, when we know we've sinned, now it's a question of, are we going to continue to do that? Or are we going to break from that, repent, and do a complete U-turn? And so my concern is going to be for a lot of good Catholics who really genuinely love the Lord and are trying to follow his teachings and learning the word and so forth, when they find out that this man that was put on a pedestal was not the saint that he was portended to be. And does that disillusion them? Does that bring them further away from the Lord, or does it bring it closer? Probably be a little both, but that's sort of my overall take on it.
I had a minister friend of mine one time tell me that he felt like there was probably be a lot of very surprised ministers when they didn't make it into heaven.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's a very broad, statement. Very broad. Because, I think when we get to meet the Lord, we're going to see people we didn't expect to see, and we're going to not see people we thought we would. I mean, because I don't know about you, but my whole existence in my life, God always does the opposite thing I think or expect of the timing. He doesn't certainly operate what we want. He's not Burger King to give it our way.
No, I think he likes making us uncomfortable because it forces us to grow. And Lord knows, in this journey to revalue, I think we've all been uncomfortable. And you had floated out a number, and I found it interesting because many years ago, my guess is 80% of the people in this were religious or Christian. And that may still be right as far as Christian, and some Muslim or religious, or, perhaps Jewish. But the overwhelming majority, and you threw out like 90-some%, I do believe you're right. I think as the years have gone, the people that didn't keep going were the folks that didn't understand faith and storing up the wealth of the wicked concept to redistribute that last great soul harvest. I think you're right. I think when you look at people that truly love God, I do. I'm guessing it is 95% or better your community, all communities on this one. I've really been blown away by that. I don't know, reformation of the currency holders, the people that believe in reset. Um, I was thinking about that just this morning, and it was just curious that you brought that up because I was just getting ready to make that comment. That I was told that the reason they have so much faith in us is because probably 80% of us espouse Christian humanitarian views and really want to help. But I do believe that number is considerably higher. I think most of the folks that are just in it for, a quick buck or a dollar have been whittled away.
I agree with you. And I think that was done on purpose. As you said earlier, God likes to put us, we need to embrace the uncomfortability as our comfort zone, right? And God needs to test our hearts and make sure that we're knitted for the right purposes. And anyone who is avaricious or only about themselves, they may get the wealth, but they're not going to keep it, right? Because the key, as you know, Mark, very well in life is giving and giving with generosity. That goes back to the abundant mindset, right? If you ever gone to, like, I don't know, a hotel convention or something, and they put out the food spread, and there's always a certain group of people that take their time and pick their food, and then there's the people that just converge like locusts, and they just hoard because they're afraid of not getting enough, right? But there's always the next day a replenishment, and I think that's how people need to think. Is we don't have to be concerned about going to the banks right away and getting in there. Take your time, take one note. It took you long enough to get here. Savor the process. I mean, get what you need, to get out of debt, but take your time, leverage the position. We're going to have 90 days to do this because that's historical precept was done, historical replication. So you're so right about conditioning the mindset in terms of preparing ourselves to enjoy this process, this rare once in 1,000-year period of time that we will never see again, and be in a giving mindset. And the ones who give will actually, just for giving with no intention necessarily getting anything, will actually find they get a lot more back. I'll give you a quick story. I don't know if you remember the original owner of the Quaker Oats Company. My big brother was telling me about the story. I didn't even know this, but I guess the original owner, at a certain point, he was like, you know what, I've done so well. Why don't I'm going to start giving away, my wealth every year, like in 5% increments, right? And at the end of, like, I think a 10-year period, he was giving away 50%, and then it was 60, and so on and so forth. And at some point he said, well, I'm going to just keep the 1% because that's really all I need to maintain what I have. And I give it away. And he thought he was done. But you know what happened? He ended up coming back and back and back. He's like, I thought I gave this away. He started getting more than when he did before he started giving. And I think that's really where we're headed in this new season.
I think you're right. I think that's exactly where we're headed in this season. Hey, I'm trying to. You've done such a clear, concise job with the news starting up, especially with Iraq and infrastructure and everything. The amount of money they've spent in power plants, gas production. Uh, I should probably just go. I feel really good about where we're at right now.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, again, we don't, as I said before, we don't do dates and rates. We're just trying to put the pieces together, the two of us, and try to give the audience a sense of comfort about where we are. But everything suggests to me that in plain terminology, you just flew. So, when they tell you have about 20 minutes before you land, get your trade tables up and all that, that's to me like where I think we are right now.
I think it's great. Yeah, it's time for you to put all your carry-on luggage under the seat in front of you. It's time to put the tray table up and put your seat into an upright position for landing. I think that's exactly where we are at. We just need it. A lot of folks need it very quickly, and I understand their frustration. It does feel like it is taken forever. In the grand scope, historically speaking, guys, this has been nothing for a reset of this size, this magnitude. It's gone swimmingly well. That doesn't make those that are suffering personally, losing family members or houses or cars or, family members that just relationships that broke because they had the audacity to believe in something like this. It doesn't make any of that any easier. All I can hope is that once we cross the finish line, you'll be able to look at it and say, that was tough, but worth it.
I mean, I think that says it perfectly, Mark. You've had kids, so you know this analogy, but I've always heard this from women who have had kids. I asked them to describe the pregnancy, like going through the stages, and of course, when it starts out, it's, this and then the second trimester and so forth. And as you get closer to the end, it gets more painful, the birthing pains, the water breaking, all the anxiety of false starts and stops. Sounds a lot like this recent, right? And then when they have the child, from what they tell me, I don't know, what I'm being told is that, yeah, they remember the pain, but they kind of forget it because they're in the joy, and the joy of the birthing supersedes the pain that went through it. And it was all worth the effort. Does that sort of ring true in your experience?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, a lot of the times God's like, hey, if you'll dedicate this is the reward. He doesn't tell us about everything we got to go through in between, or a lot of people I don't think would take the deal. They should. But we really have become averse to struggling. Not too many Jobs left in the world.
No, no. And it definitely, this whole, better than anybody, you've been in this a long time. And I've got guys on our team that have been in this for 20 plus years. I mean, it sucked. There's no getting around it. It's been a very long, laborious process. No one's arguing that, but we're here. And if we made it this far, he didn't take us this far to take us this far. He's going to get us the rest of the way. And I really, honestly, I know for myself, I think for you, Mark, we're going to be arbiters and stewards of this gift to get into the people's hands. I'm really excited about the people that are going to be blessed, and just taking the attention off of ourselves and putting it on to God, because without him, it wouldn't exist in the first place. So I really do honestly believe, whether it's naive or not, that most of the overwhelming majority of the people in this community are excited about making a difference, making an impact for something or someone else. And it can't change the past, but it can go a long way towards healing the future.
Yeah, no, I very much agree with that one. Yeah, and I dare probably 99% of your community, my community, they're going to do great things for a lot of people, whether it's just their immediate family, whether it's just them, whether it's their children, whether they could afford to go a whole lot deeper and they're going to help communities or countries. I do. I am so looking forward to the floodgates of prosperity that they're going to unleash upon the world. Makes me feel good thinking about them.
Yeah, me too. It's the possibilities are endless, and just this reversal of fortune, literally and figuratively. So, Mark, as we close out for now, final words that you have for the audience, and where can people find your work?
You can find the easiest is just go to theoriginalmarkz.com, the website, and then you can find links to all the socials, YouTube, all of those. Twitter, there's no "the" in front of it, just @originalmarkz. Also remember, for myself, John, anybody else in this one, there are hundreds more fake versions of us than there are real versions of us. And most of them are trying to get into your wallets or your pockets or your brains. Don't let them. Be smart, verify, double check. Never trust just me, meaning do your due diligence. If I put up an article, read it if you're up for it. Listen to John, listen to me, listen to some others, and then form your opinion then. I can't stress that one enough. We are supposed to question. We're supposed to always seek the truth. Don't expect one person to give it all to you.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly said. And also, Mark, I'm sure you'd agree. Don't listen to trolls and bots, haters trying to discourage you or fearmonger you out of this. Just push those knuckleheads to the side, because they're insignificant. And thankfully, I'm noticing they're getting quieter and quieter, which is good. Going back to the hole from which they came. And folks, obviously, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think we're wearing them down finally. I don't think they have the stamina we have.
No. Their desire to succeed is not as great as ours is to win, and God always triumphs in the end over evil anyway. You're right. And folks, if you're looking for currencies and all the ones that you know about, or you want to add to cache of your position, we have a great company we work with that sponsors this channel to make it possible. We'll leave that link for you in the description. The original Mark Z, not the fake one, the real one. Thanks for joining us today, brother. We appreciate it. Welcome back from the family event, and we look forward to hearing from you again shortly.
I appreciate you, John.
Thanks. Likewise, Mark.